know that a year ago, in July, we hired a young man to attend and shepherd the children and youth ministry. And we started out, when I was in Pine Ridge, came to Pine Ridge 4 years ago. The children and youth ministry consisted of an after-school program for about an hour and a half, Monday through Friday. Basically, a safe place to play. That's what it was. We had a meal on Wednesday night for those children, and we did worship, prayed for the meal with them on Wednesday evenings, and that was pretty much the extent of the children and youth ministry. And one of the really big needs in Pine Ridge, set this down so I can fly my hands around about spilling on myself. One of the really big needs in Pine Ridge is suicide prevention for young people. So the largest, the biggest killer statistically of young people from the age of 12 to 20 is suicide. That's the #1 cause of death. And so we knew that we needed to expand that programming. So Nicholas came to Pine Ridge in July of 2018. And he started working with the students in the program that we had going, and then that started to develop into something more, and we added some more local staff. And in February, we started a preteen program. So what had happened is we would notice that the children would come to the retreat center, to the programming. They would, you just couldn't be in diapers. So 3, 4 years old, around 4 was usually about our youngest child. And then about the time they got to 10, 11, 12, they would just stop coming. And that's right about the time when they really needed support. Well, we thought about it, it's like, well, but we're doing the same thing, you know, all those years, and it just gets to not be fun for them anymore. And those older students are really, they have a big impact. I mean, they're the leaders of the kids, for better or worse. Whether it's good behavior or bad behavior, the younger students look to them. And so we ended up deciding that we would start a preteen, so 9 to 12-year-olds. So that started in February on Saturdays. So when we began the program, when I began, the program was going, we were averaging 20 kids a night. And last November, we were averaging over 60 kids a night.
Wow.
And we don't have room in our facility for that many kids, and so we had to split by neighborhood. So we bring kids from 2 days a week from one neighborhood and 2 days a week from alternating neighborhoods, and then Saturday was the preteen program. And that started out with about 3 or 4 kids, and the last session that we just did, we had 18. Again, we don't really have space, and 3 of our preteens are going to be teenagers. The first one that turns 13, she turns 13 on Christmas Day, and then the others come within that first week or so, 10 days of January. So we're hoping that by the time we get to the 1st of January that we will be starting that teenage program, so teen time. And the idea is that as the children enter the preteen program, that they would then, through mentoring, life skills, coping skills, peer ministry types of things, that they will circle back and support the younger children, and that the teenagers are going to circle back and help the preteens, and that way we can try to create some sort of a support network among the children themselves. Because the reality is that they come to the retreat center, and yeah, it's a great place to be, but they spend most of their time away from there, and they need people they can count on. So the teen program will include mentors from the community, adults who will be able to be good role models to them, will be able to speak to whatever their life situations are. So we're really excited about that. And one very key thing is that statistically it's been proven that if young people have a strong foundation in a faith, whatever that faith tradition is, that they're less likely to commit suicide. And Nicholas and I both felt very strongly, and we've incorporated it as formally in part of our programming, is that we will support Jesus' teachings and teaching and Christianity. We also will support traditional Lakota spirituality, and those two things will be talked about congruently with each other. In my understanding, those two things are actually one and the same. What I preached about this morning is exactly about Lakota spirituality as well. So we'll support both of those paths, and they will not be mutually exclusive. So it's not you have to choose this or this, but you can choose this path, but we're going to try to keep those communications open so that we can create some healing and some reconciliation. So we're very excited about that. so that children and youth ministry is really just growing. And our limiting factor now is our space, which brings me to, for those of you that were in Pine Ridge, you remember that church across the parking lot? That's the Pine Ridge Presbyterian Church. Well, I've been meeting and working with them since I arrived in Pine Ridge to try and partner so that we could use that building. And they have delayed making any kind of a decision, and now the tribe has begun to examine buildings that appear to be underused or unused or abandoned, and they're starting to reclaim those. So the Dakota Presbytery received a notice from the tribe that they're considering taking that building back to be used. And we have a relationship with the tribe, and so we've been we've been informed about those conversations. And so now the first week in October, and this is what I would like to request your prayers about. The 4th, 5th, and 6th, the first weekend in October, the Dakota Presbytery will be making a decision about whether or not to allow the Pine Ridge Retreat Center, us, me, whatever, to have authority to use that building to expand our children and youth ministry. And the building itself, it needs repairs, it's got some issues, but nothing huge. The building's got good bones. And it's got a huge open basement, which would allow us to actually accommodate all the kids together for that younger age, the Kids Time program. And the thing that's important about that is because there's a lot of family neighborhood alliances, and these very firm lines get drawn, and there's a lot of conflict around that. So if we can have all the kids together at the same time, we can try to help to start to heal some of those, divisions that exist between families or between neighborhoods. And so we're really hoping and praying that we're going to be able to work with the Presbyterian Church in a meaningful way to expand that ministry. And then, of course, there's a Presbyterian priest that is living in a border town right now. He's a Lakota elder. And so my intention would be at that point to invite him to come back and lead worship 2 Sundays a month, and to try and get that faith community revived, because that building's been unused basically for 20 years, as near as I can tell. So lots of prayers around that, and then of course there will be a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of work to be done, but if we can just get access to the building, that would be really helpful. So prayers around renewed relationship. Also part of the children and youth programming, we have a relationship with the Episcopal Church, and they elected a new bishop in South Dakota, so I'm going to meet with him on the 3rd of October. And the Episcopal Church, I live in their parsonage, and they pay half the salary of our youth minister, Nicholas. So going to introduce ourselves and update him on the ministry, and hopefully, just make sure that our relationship there is on firm foundation so that they will continue to support that ministry. And the Lutherans in South Dakota also elected a new bishop who was installed actually yesterday, and I meet with her on October 2nd. So October 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 6th, really critical days for us moving forward with our ministry and whatever the future has to unfold. The other really exciting thing is that in August, we have Lindsay Bamer started. She was a young adult in Global Mission in Cambodia. So she has cross-cultural experience. She's done a couple of projects for Augustana University, working in churches that are now in neighborhoods that have a different ethnic makeup, and trying to reconnect those congregations. Lots of really amazing experience for such a young person. And so she now will be facilitating the cultural immersion portion of our ministry, which once the kids ministry moves over to the Presbyterian Church, then the cultural immersion ministry will be able to expand there. We have a congregation in Denver that has offered to come and remodel our kitchen for us.
Oh,
Hey! So, I'm trying to discern this now. So I really would love to get the retreat center's kitchen. We'd take out a wall, expand the kitchen, and make it so much more functional. But we also need the kitchen hooked up at the church next door. The kids ministry is going to be taking place, so I got to figure that out yet. So, but anyway, it'll be whichever direction that ends up going. That will also be a really big help to the ministry. We have found ourselves in a position to connect folks in ways that you can't plan for it. It just kind of is there. So we've been hosting people that work for the Lakota Law Project. They've been staying in our building and working with the tribal officers in lobbying FEMA to get a disaster designation because of the flooding that we suffered in Pine Ridge this spring. And that was accomplished. So they've been in our building, and that helped to firm up our relationship and open the relationship with the tribal president and his office. I got a call right when I was getting leaving Pine Ridge to come back here that somebody from the State Department is bringing faith leaders from like 5 different countries, and they're looking for a place to meet in Pine Ridge, and they heard that we might be open to hosting that meeting. And I'm like, yeah, sure, come on over. And so I don't know what that's going to mean, but just making ourselves open and available to see what's going to transpire. So that just lots of really exciting things. We had a really great summer with Job Corps. At the beginning of the summer, we needed staff, and so Nicholas interviewed people to work with the Expanding Kids programming, and he had 6 really good applicants. And we couldn't really decide, and I said, well, hire all 6, and you know that always within a month or so, some people find a different job, or they're just not interested, or whatever. It doesn't work out for one reason or another, and as it turned out, they all were great, and they all stayed all summer. And now we've got one that's going back to college, and so I hope she comes back next summer again to help with the summer programming. And we've got one young woman who's going to be gone having a baby here in a little bit. And so just the fact that we were able to find people to come and work that have stayed with it, and it's been amazing, just amazing how that has unfolded. I think that's kind of the highlights right now. I'm trying to remember if I'm forgetting anything big. Well, if I come up with it, I'll just interject it later. So I'll just open it up for questions, or if there's things.
I do just want to say that we are planning to go back in the spring to visit Pastor K and walk with some of the folks there that we got to meet last time, and hopefully some new ones too. I think the date, Tim, is at April 20th.
We would travel over the weekend and arrive and be there for Monday the 20th.
So we would leave on the
18th, Saturday the 18th.
So be thinking if that's something you'd like to do. If you went last time, it'll be a great chance for us to see the changes that have happened. And if you've not gone before, it is really a life-changing experience.
Truly.
So I would encourage you, and we'll have a planning meeting, hopefully still before the first of the year.
Excellent.
Yeah. Questions for Pastor K? Things you're wondering about?
I just want to say, I'm so thankful you were placed there.
Oh, thank you.
You have done so much work and made so many changes.
Such a difference.
It is, truly.
Thank you.
Thanks,
That's
Jill.
really encouraging.
You were saying last time that you wanted companies to come in and open up a shop in the reservation. Do you have any luck with this one? You have new companies?
No, actually, I've posted a couple people that came that had inquiries, but none of it has moved beyond them coming and looking and seeing. And the reality is that because the workforce hasn't had an opportunity for really development, a large-scale operation, whether it's manufacturing or whatever, I think they're not ready for that, but we need to start. So my attempt at that is the Job Corps, and actually it's this kind of thing. So last spring or fall, we had the hail damage, and you folks supported our efforts there. So we had 18 people on our payroll for that time trying to help with the hail damage. And then at the first of the year, the tribe got funding. I don't know, it was not FEMA, but they got some funding. And so they moved the operations that we had started to be done through the tribal housing offices. And all of those people got jobs in housing because they had been showing up at work every day and working as part of the Job Corps. And at first I was like, oh man, you just killed my Job Corps. And then it's like, but wait, that's what it's supposed to be about. They moved on to a better job for themselves. And so after I got over my initial shock, I was like, that's great, you know, congratulations and wish you all the best. And so I know that necessarily there's always gonna be a turnover of people, but the point of that program is to train people and prepare them, and honestly, they would have never had a chance to get those jobs if they wouldn't have been working on the job every day leading up to that.
It would also reduce the suicide rates when you have jobs available for the people, the young people especially, because you have nothing to look forward to. Then you
Yeah.
have some kind of work that you don't think about suicide.
Right, well, and the other thing is just getting this idea about, how do we help young people be able to make healthy choices for themselves? How do we help young people understand that they are really beloved children of God? How do we help young people understand that whatever it is that they're thinking about or that they're experiencing, that they can reach out? And one of the temptations is, and this, I don't have time to tell you this whole story, but when I first got to Pine Ridge, I picked up a young man who had a massive suitcase he was dragging down the road, and I gave him a ride to the highway. And he shared a bunch of things with me, and he has been, he's been an angel for me in my work because it's helped me to remember that I don't know what people are up against. And I asked him, I don't understand the suicide thing. Like, I understand that people commit suicide, and I get that, but so many suicides. And he said, you know what happens is, there's always suicide, but there's peaks and valleys. So they have, you know, like there's a big rise, and then when that happens, all this help and funding floods in from the outside, and people come and they give counselors at the school who don't understand life on the reservation. And he said, one of the things that really makes me angry is that people will say, this is a really permanent solution to a temporary problem. Don't do this. And he said, have they looked around the reservation? Do they know how stupid it is for them to say that to us? It's not helpful in that context. And I think that's one of the things that I hope, even though we're a small fish in a big sea, I really hope that the work that we do helps people understand that, yes, the situation on the reservation is dire, there's a lot of poverty, there's hopelessness, all of that, but there are other things, and to give them tools so that they can make other choices and reclaim identity and some of these other pieces, and all about trying to create healing and reconciliation. And I personally, the kids ministry is really exciting and it's really important. I feel that the Job Corps is the most important work that we do in Pine Ridge. I really do. Because we can help the kids, but we need to help the parents too.
Yeah.
Because otherwise the kids still are struggling against that system.
Gives their life value, right?
Well, I mean, and I always tell
In
people,
their mind.
I always tell people, if I would have grown up in Pine Ridge, I would have been one of the people sitting over in White Clay. I mean, imagine that, what do you have to do every day? Well, you go find a place to sit around and hang out with your friends, or whoever it is that else is hanging around, and, that's it. And of course, all of us that want to come and solve, well, they could go pick up trash around the neighborhood. Okay, how long can you really do that as a way of keeping your sanity? Well, you can go help or volunteer, but those things don't help your family with trying to make ends meet. And so it's just understanding this context. So just trying to shift people's mind and understanding that they do have other options than suicide. And there are no easy answers. That's the bottom line. But we just have to keep trying every day. Well, if somebody comes up with a question later, that's fine. I just want to tell you all that we have been out of hygiene kits for most of the summer, and so I'm really happy that these will be coming. We've had a few dribble, 5 turn up here or there, or 10 turn up here and there. But we just cannot keep these things in stock. And for anybody who's ever worked with folks who are stuck in homelessness or joblessness or whatever, being able to take care of our personal hygiene is so important for how we feel about ourselves